the lonesome latter years. An angel throng, bewinged, bedight, in veils and drowned in tears, sit in a theater to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly, mere puppets they that come and go, to the bidding of vast, formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings invisible woe. That motley drama, to be sure, it shall not be forgot, with its phantom, chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, returneth ever in a circle to the self-same spot, and much of madness, and more of sin and horror, the soul of the plot. But see amid the mimic rout a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that rides from out the scenic solitude. It rides with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food, and seraphs sob at vermin fangs and human gore imbued. Out are all the lights, out all, and over each quivering form a curtain. A funeral pall falls with the rush of a storm, and the angels, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy man, and its hero, the conqueror worm. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
"'Tis some visitor,"
I muttered.
"tapping at my chamber door."
"Only this and nothing more."
Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost.
Come, let the burial rite be read, the funeral song be sung.
An anthem for the queenliest dead that ever died so young.
A dirge for her, the doubly death, and that she died so young.
For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating.
"'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door."
Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door.
This it is and nothing more.
Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer,
"Sir,"
said I.
"But madam, truly your forgiveness I implore."
But the fact is, I was napping, when so gently you came rapping.
And so faintly you came tapping.
Tapping at my chamber door.
"That I scarce was sure I heard you."
Here I opened wide the door.
Darkness there, nothing more.
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word.
Lenore?
Merely this.
"And nothing more."
Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard it tapping somewhat louder than before.
Surely.
Said I.
"Surely that is something at my window lattice."
Let me see then what their ask is, and this mystery explore.
Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore.
'Tis the wind and nothing more.
Open here I flung the shutter, and with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with the end of golden lady,
Perched above my chamber door.
perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. And this ebony bird beguiled my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance he wore.
"Though thy crest be shorn and shaven now,
I said,
Art sure no craven?
Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore.
tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore."
quoth the raven.
"Nevermore."
Nevermore.
Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though the answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet has been blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the placid bust above his chamber door with such name as.
"Nevermore."
Nevermore.
Nevermore.
But the raven, sitting lowly on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Not a syllable then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till till I scarcely more than muttered.
Other friends have flown before.
On the morrow he will leave
As
me.
many hopes have flown before.
And the bird said,
Nevermore.
Nevermore.
startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken,
Doubtless.
said I,
When it utters its only stop and store.
Caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster.
Followed fast and followed faster till his songs one burden bore.
Till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore. Of
Nevermore.
nevermore.
but the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then into the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, wondering what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking.
Nevermore.
Nevermore.
This and more I sat in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, on whose velvet violet lining the lamplight gloated o'er, she shall press. Oh.
Nevermore.
Nevermore.
Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor.
Wretch!
I
Our
cried,
God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite.
Recite and nepenthe from thy memory's elf.
In the icy air of night.
While the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle.
With a crystalline delight keeping time, in a sort of runic
To
rhyme.
the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, bells, bells.
of Lenore,
Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore.
quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
Prophet!
Said I.
Thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or
By the
devil.
heaven that bent above us, by the God we both adore.
Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant aided.
That shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name
Cast
Lenore.
for rare, radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore.
Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
Be that word our sign in parting bird or
I
fiend.
shrieked upstart.
Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven.
Nevermore.
And the raven never flitting, still is sitting, still is sitting.
On the pallid busted palace, just above my chamber door.
And his eyes of all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming.
And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor.
And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor.
Shall be lifted nevermore. True, nervous, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am, but why would you say that I'm mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them.
Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell.
Why then would you say that I'm mad? Hearken and observe how calmly, how healthily I can tell you the whole story.
It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my
But
brain.
once conceived, it haunted me day and night.
Object there was none.
Passion there was none.
I loved the old man.
He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult.
For his gold I had no desire.
I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold.
And so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye. Forever.
Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded. With what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work.
Every night, just at midnight, I made an offering sufficient for my head and to put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed.
Would a madman have been so wise as this?
And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye.
This I did for 7 long nights. Every night, just before midnight, but I found the eye always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the man who vexed me, but his evil eye.
Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door.
A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine.
Never before that night had I felt the extent of my powers, of my sagacity.
Now you may think that I drew back, but no.
I was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening.
Who's there?
I knew that sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world has slept, it has welled up from my own bosom.
Deepening with its terrible echo the terrors that distracted me. He'd been trying to fancy his fears causeless, but could not.
It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor. It is merely a cricket.
When I had waited a long time without hearing him lie back down, I resolved to open a crevice in the lantern, just so much that a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out full upon the vulture eye.
It was open. Wide open. I could see it with perfect distinctfulness. Dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones.
Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart.
And now, at the dead of night, amid the dreadful silence of the old house, such strange a sound as this excited me to uncontrollable terror.
And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor.
The old man's hour had come.
At length it ceased.
The old man was dead.
I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead.
The eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body.
First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and the arms, and the legs.
I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings.
I replaced the board so cunningly that no human eye, not even his, would have detected anything wrong. I went to the door with a light heart, for what had I to fear?
Officers of the police!
A shriek had been heard by a neighbor.
There has been suspicion of foul play. We have been deputed to search the premises.
I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bid the gentleman welcome. The shriek was my own in a dream. The old man has been absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought 2 chairs into the old man's chamber and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself placed my own chair upon the very spot where reposed the corpse of the victim.
The officers were satisfied.
My manner had convinced them.
I sat and answered cheerily.
They chatted familiar things.
But ere long, I felt myself getting very pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained in definitiveness, until at length I realized the sound was not within my own ears. No doubt I now grew very pale. I talked more fluently, in a heightened voice. The sound was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I talked more quickly and in a high key. I arose and argued about trifles with violent gesticulations. Why would they not be gone? Oh God, what could I do? I swore, I raved, I foamed. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, but it grew louder, louder, louder!
And still the men chatted pleasantly.
And smiled.
Almighty God, was it possible they heard not? No, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my agony. But anything was more tolerable than this. Anything was better than this derision. I could stand their hypocritical smiles no longer. Villains, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Here, tear up the planks. It is the beating of his hideous heart. At morn, at noon, at twilight dim, Mary, thou hast heard my hymn. In joy and woe, in good and ill, Mother of God, be with me still. When the hours blew brightly by, and not a cloud obscured the sky, my soul, lest it should truant be, thy grace did guide to thine and thee. But if shadows of fate should o'ercast both my present and my past, let my future radiant shine with sweet hopes of thee and thine.